Hello everyone. Well, I'm back. I'm back from my holiday. I'm rested. I'm reasonably enthusiastic about beginning again, but I am certainly rested. I hope that you were good while I was away and that everything was safe and well for you and your families. It's good to see that we have been dropped down from lockdown level 3 to level 2. That means we're open here in the church for a little bit more. We can have more people in the church for the celebration of Eucharist. Information about these changes have been posted on our different social media platforms. I'd ask that you have a look at those. The two big changes that the Archbishop has announced are that we can have 250 people indoors as long as the church allows for that. Well, our church doesn't if we're going to have social distancing, so the number we have set here in the parish is 150. Obviously, with that number, we don't need to have bookings for weekday masses, but still for Sunday masses you need to book. So go to our website or phone the parish office to get your booking for Sunday Mass. The other big change that the Archbishop announced is that we are allowed to have requiem masses now as well as funeral services. You know that funeral services were allowed during these hard lockdowns, but not requiem masses. That has now been changed, and that I think is really powerful and important for us. So those are the two big changes. If you've got any questions, please look at the different social media platforms or give us a shout in the office. Anyway, we're about sermon prep this afternoon. You're all welcome as we look forward to the 25th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Year B. And the readings for this Sunday are from the Book of Wisdom. Our first reading taken from the Book of Wisdom. Wisdom chapter 2, verse 12, and then verses 17 to 20. Our responsorial psalm is Psalm 54, and the verse that we respond with is, "Behold, the Lord is the upholder of our life." And I think that's really important for all of us to sit with and to contemplate on, that God is at the base of our lives. He is the foundation. He is the one who holds us up. It is on Him that we build and base our lives as Christian men and women. And so no matter the circumstances, no matter the trials and challenges, and also no matter the successes and achievements, they're all founded on God. And so perhaps that's something we can reflect on this Sunday. The second reading is taken from St. James's letter, chapter 3, verses 16, and then to chapter 4, verse 3. The Gospel is from St. Mark's Gospel. Of course, we're reading Mark's Gospel primarily during this year B. Chapter 9, verse 30 to 37. In Mark's Gospel, Jesus predicts or warns the apostles, the disciples, 3 times of his death and hints at the kind of death he is to suffer. 3 times he tells them, and 3 times they fail to grasp, they fail to understand. Perhaps they don't want to listen and understand, because the idea of a suffering Messiah is just so foreign to them. That's not what they were expecting. It's not what they were hoping for. And it's certainly not the Messiah they want to follow. They want to follow a Messiah that is powerful and influential and will change things for the good, but from a secular, material perspective. And so the disciples in Mark's Gospel, throughout Mark's Gospel, are really shown to be slow learners, unwilling to really listen and understand what Jesus is teaching. And that certainly is very evident in the 3 passion predictions found in Mark's Gospel. Our Gospel for this Sunday contains the 2nd passion prediction, and you will see very clearly that they fail to grasp. And in fact, sort of gloss it over and then continue the journey worrying about who is the greatest, who will be the first in the kingdom, what positions they can enjoy. And Jesus tries to teach them that it's not about position. Instead, he gives the example of a little child. Now, we know that children in the time of Jesus, while loved and valued, were considered very little, very insignificant, almost as a possession, I suppose, sometimes. And so Jesus is saying, this little child, innocent, perhaps not so valuable and important in the big scheme of society, this is the model for us. And so Jesus tries to explain his role, what he's come to do, and therefore what his disciples, you and me, are to try and emulate. And so this gospel speaks to us about leadership in some ways, doesn't it? We've spoken about Christians being leaders, all of us. Those who are baptized are called to lead others to the gospel, lead others to Jesus. And so we may not be bishops or priests or pastoral counselors or senior leadership team members, but we all have positions of leadership by virtue of our baptism. And so it's important for us to look at what kind of leaders Jesus expects his disciples to be as he explains, first of all, his passion, but also then the issues surrounding who is first, who is last, innocent and small little people. We need to get a sense of how Jesus sees leadership. During my holidays, I bought this book, The Leadership Bible. It's put together by a Protestant, Dr. John Maxwell, but it's really good where it looks at different leadership principles throughout the scriptures, which helps us, certainly us in leadership, but I think all of us, to look at how we are to be leaders. And for this gospel, Dr. Maxwell points out 10 leadership principles that come through, particularly from this extract. I won't go through all of them, but I think some of them might be important for us. First of all, and most importantly, leadership is servanthood. And I think that comes through when we have the cross in the background. Servanthood. Another principle that he speaks about is impact comes from relationships, not positions. Those disciples on the way talking about their positions, that's not what it's about. We are not leaders because of our positions only. Some of us are in positions of leadership, but it's about building relationships with others. That's when others follow. That's why they followed Jesus, didn't they? I mean, Jesus' position wasn't so great. He wasn't offering lots of money and reward, certainly not in this life, but people followed him because of their interaction with him. Some other points here. Great leaders call for great commitment, and that's what Jesus asks of the disciples. He asks of us. We need to commit our whole lives to him, and leaders must understand that their credibility comes by meeting needs and solving problems. And so as we look around our world, and I think that's a theme that comes up certainly in the first reading from the Book of Wisdom, if we look around our world, we'll see its different needs. And are we as a church, are we as Christians trying to meet the needs of our world? Okay, so those are some thoughts from the Gospel. If we look at the Book of Wisdom, our first reading, we remember that the Book of Wisdom was perhaps the last, well, we're pretty sure, it was the last Old Testament book written before Jesus. It was written most probably just before Jesus was born, and it wasn't written in the Holy Land in Israel. It was written, we're pretty sure, in Egypt, in Alexandria. Last week we had a perspective of what being a Christian, what being a follower of Jesus was about, and what happened. Persecution very often. This Sunday, again, we look at what it means to follow Jesus, to be a disciple of Jesus, but from a different angle, from a different perspective. This Sunday, we look at it from the perspective of the one who is not a follower, one who is not the righteous. And the unrighteous are trying to trap the righteous. So if you read there, they talk about the ungodly, the ungodly, those who are not believers. The ungodly said, "Let us lie in wait for the righteous man." So we get a sense of how those who try to live a righteous life, follow Jesus, live the commandments, how so often we seem to be trapped by society, by others, by the things of our world. And sometimes it may even seem that they're purposefully out to get us. And yeah, maybe that's true, certainly in some parts of the world, and certainly if you reflect on lockdown, you know that so many places in our country, there was free gathering almost, lots of people in places. I mean, I flew to Cape Town to see my brother, and the aeroplane was full. We were seated close together in a small little space, of course, an aeroplane. I don't know how many people fit on the aeroplane, 150, 200 people. And yet in the church, our big church here, with social distancing and everything, we could only fit 50. So you have a sense, are they purposefully persecuting or limiting the church, the faith? Have they got it in for us? And maybe there's something, and we need to always be alert to these limits on us. So the perspective of today's, Sunday's reading is looking at the challenges and difficulties that are in the world, rather not from the Christian's perspective, but from the perspective of the ungodly. And it helps us, it teaches us to be alert to things. We need, as Christians, to be alert to the world, to find ways to live in the world, and to know that sometimes the world is not always receptive, but that doesn't stop us. We mustn't be anti the world. We mustn't try to fight back or retreat, but find opportunities to let the gospel message be heard in the world. Okay, so that's from the first reading. The second reading is, as I said, the letter from St. James. St. James is immensely practical, isn't he? And he speaks about what he sees and not really what he hears about, but rather what he's seeing, what he's observing. And it's clear from the reading for this Sunday that he expects Christians to, if there is going to be harmony and unity, to live in a certain way. And that harmony and unity is not only within the church, but within the society that may be antagonistic towards the gospel, towards men and women of faith. How do we live? By being loving, caring, compassionate, as John Maxwell says in his Leadership Bible note, by trying to meet the needs of the world. So, there's some reflections for the sermon that I'm trying to put together in my bit of a foggy mind, trying to get out of holiday mode. But those are some of the thoughts that are coming to me. We'll see what the sermon actually ends up looking like, but there's some thoughts. I hope you will join us on Sunday for the 25th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Year B. It is the 19th of September, of course. So, until then, keep safe, observe all the guidelines and things to keep safe, because the virus is still around, hey? So we must be careful. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you in person or online. God bless you all now. Bye-bye.